Some games exist solely to hit you right in those nostalgic feels, and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu does just that. But is it actually a good game, or is it just a nostalgia bait waste of time? Let's talk about it. I still remember Christmas morning in 1999. I was a kid rushing downstairs on Christmas to open up my gifts, and there it was, an atomic purple Game Boy Color and Pokemon Yellow, the one thing I had asked for that year for Christmas. Everyone was always talking about Pokemon in school, red, blue, and now yellow, but I always felt left out. Finally, though, I had my own copy. That game didn't leave my hands for weeks. I would sink hours upon hours into Pokemon Yellow and loving it every step along the way. It's one of those core memories of my childhood, and I've loved every Pokemon game since. So when Let's Go Pikachu initially released, I'll be honest, I was a little bit skeptical because it was integrating the Pokemon Go mechanics, but at the very least there was going to be a bit of nostalgia. I didn't honestly go into it expecting a brand new experience. I kind of just wanted to revisit Kanto, the very first Pokemon region I ever experienced, see just how it had aged, and maybe feel a bit of that old magic again. So let's jump into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know, do you love Pokemon? If so, what game is your favorite? And with that being said, let's go. Let's Go Pikachu retells Pokemon Yellow, but with more life and color than the original ever could. It more or less tells a story in the same way, but it's kind of like looking at it through a different lens. You don't play as Red, but you do follow the same progression, leaving Pallet Town, taking on the 8 gyms, facing Team Rocket, and working your way up to the Pokemon League. But now, everything pops all that much more being on a fully capable console instead of a little Game Boy or Game Boy Color. Like Pokemon Yellow, Let's Go Pikachu ties in little bits from the Pokemon anime. Jessie, James, and Meowth appear throughout your journey, and they fit perfectly. The rival this time though is less of a jerk, and he's more of an actual friend, which fits the softer tone of the remake. You still get that sense of friendly competition, but it's not about one-upping each other. It's almost like you're going on an adventure together, just separately, if that makes sense. The pacing of the story feels nearly identical to Yellow, but everything's a lot more expressive. You get short little additional cutscenes, little bits of character dialogue to give everyone more personality, and moments that make the world feel connected rather than just different cities connected by small roads. It's faithful, sometimes a bit too faithful, but that's kind of the point. It's not trying to modernize the story into something flashy or brand new. It's more there just to tug at the nostalgia and lets you re-enjoy the original Pokemon with new flair several decades later. But that's enough of the story of the Pokemon Let's Go games. Let's talk about the gameplay and how it's changed. Gameplay is what really differentiates Let's Go Pikachu from the original release of Pokemon Yellow. Let's Go Pikachu takes a ton of cues from Pokemon Go, replacing wild battles with a new catching system. Instead of fighting wild Pokemon, you throw Pokeballs using motion controls or the buttons in handheld mode. It feels kind of strange at first, especially if you've played every mainline game before, but once you get used to it, it's quick and it's actually kind of relaxing. You can control the game using either the left or right Joy-Con, the Pokeball Plus accessory, or handheld mode. I mostly played using a single Joy-Con, which works well enough, though the lack of Pro Controller support is kind of odd. The game works in handheld mode with no issues whatsoever, and that would have translated perfectly to Pro Controller compatibility. It's not the end of the world, but it would have made it a lot more comfortable for longer play sessions. Catching Pokemon is also how you gain most of your experience. You earn way more experience from catching chains of the same species, which boosts your chances of finding shinies and getting better stats, as well as candies to boost Pokemon stats even further. That means grinding by fighting trainers is less effective, which is kind of backwards compared to the original release. Your priority is more about catching, and catching some more. It's repetitive, but in the same way fishing can be, it becomes a little hypnotic once you settle into the rhythm. This is made even easier by the fact that Let's Go Pikachu no longer has random encounters, making it easier to only encounter the type of Pokemon you want and avoid those pesky Zubats. That had to be the worst part of the original releases. Of course, there are still battles. You'll fight trainers, gym leaders, and the Pokemon League, but balance is heavily in your favor. Your starter Pikachu is absurdly strong in this version, especially with the partner exclusive moves it learns through move tutors. You have Zippy Zap, which is an electric quick attack with a 100% critical rate, which I spammed throughout the entire game. Splishy Splash, which is basically Surf, but it has a high probability to paralyze the enemy and hits both enemy Pokemon in double battles. And Floaty Fall, which is basically a single turn fly but has the chance to make the enemy flinch. Then there's one more move, which isn't a traditional move because you don't teach it to Pikachu. It's called Pika Papow. It's performed by waving the Joy-Con when Pikachu is happy, and it does insane amount of damage, which increases even further the friendlier Pikachu is towards you. Honestly, I was able to beat most of the game using just Pikachu alone, and that's why most of the footage you see is Pikachu in battles. Normally, in any Pokemon game, you'd want to vary your team to cover all elements, but Pikachu is so ridiculously overpowered and covers so many different elemental attacks, he can basically solo the whole game. I heard in Let's Go Eevee is the same way. Now, I wouldn't suggest this for most Pokemon games, but for Let's Go Pikachu, it kind of makes sense. After you finish the main story, collect all 8 badges, defeat the Pokemon League, the game gives you a decent amount of post-game content. The Master Trainer battles are kind of a surprise. You have one expert for each Pokemon species, each using only that specific Pokemon. They're incredibly difficult mirror matches that are far more difficult than the main story, and you can challenge them after you defeat the Elite Four. The difficulty overall is very forgiving. It's very clear that the Let's Go games were made as a bridge for kids, for newcomers, and especially for people who got into the series through Pokemon Go. It's intentionally friendly and approachable. It might be too easy for veterans or people that look at this as a competitive game, but I think it succeeds at what it's trying to be, a calm, welcoming way back into the world of Pokemon. Then I do have to mention there's also the Go Park feature. So this game connects to Pokemon Go. The Go Park lets you transfer a Pokemon from Pokemon Go into your Switch game. It's not essential, but it's a thoughtful touch, though you can't access it until Fuchsia City, so it is quite a bit into the game. I will mention when you do transfer your Pokemon from Pokemon Go, it's a one-way transfer and they will be quite a bit weaker, so just keep that in mind. Visually, Let's Go Pikachu looks exactly what I would have thought a full 3D Gen 1 Pokemon game would be. Kanto looks colorful and warm, sort of as if it's an animated storybook. Seeing Pokemon wandering around the world for the first time adds a ton of life to the world, and there's this subtle joy in just watching them move around naturally. What really stood out to me though was the music. Every track from the original is here, completely reworked but instantly recognizable. The new arrangements sound incredible. They're richer, they're fuller, and they're still nostalgic, but they don't feel like cheap fan service. The Viridian Forest theme in particular hit me hard. The moment it started playing, it honestly felt like I was playing on my old Game Boy, squinting under a lamp way past bedtime, because I'm sure we all did that. Performance-wise, the game runs smoothly. I never had any issues with frame rates or loading, and it looks great in both docked and handheld mode. It's polished in that quiet, reliable way that doesn't draw attention to itself. It just kind of works for what it's trying to do. I will go ahead and say though, I did play this on Switch too, so I can't speak for how it ran on the original Switch. Can't imagine would have had performance issues there though. It really doesn't seem like that demanding of a game. After spending about 25 hours with Let's Go Pikachu, I came away feeling surprisingly content. It's not the most challenging Pokemon game, or the deepest, It doesn't try to compete with the mainline titles or appeal to hardcore players, but it's one of those genuine, comforting games in the series. I was initially skeptical on the Pokemon Go inspiration, but honestly, it worked with the whole vibe the game had going for it. If you grew up with Pokemon Yellow, you'll feel right at home. It's not an attempt to outdo or replace your memories you had growing up. It's kinda more like a respectful recreation of them. And I think that's exactly why it works. It's not a perfect game. The motion controls can be hit or miss, and I wish the game had allowed for more flexible control options, but that whole feeling of Pokemon you grew up with, it's still there. It's the kind of game you play when you just want a fun time. It's warm and it's nostalgic and full of small details that remind you why this series became such a phenomenon in the first place. I don't know if Let's Go Pikachu will ever be anyone's favorite Pokemon game, but I think it's one of the most important ones in a long time. It's kind of like a bridge between the eras, the one that remembers where Pokemon started while gently introducing it to a new generation. If you're going to play it with anybody, this would be the perfect game to introduce your children to, because it's simple, it's easy, and honestly, it has a multiplayer mode too. I didn't get a chance to try it, but if you want to play with your kids, excellent choice. But that's it for today's review on Let's Go Pikachu. Thank you so much for watching. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you played Pokemon Yellow back in the day. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like and subscribe, and until the next one, have a wonderful day.